Please rise for the invocation by Reverend Rick Schilling, Associate Pastor, First United Methodist Church.
Let's pray. Gracious God, as leaders of this community, we look to you for guidance. May we turn our ears toward your wisdom, stretch our minds toward understanding, call out for your insight, and cry aloud for your understanding. As a community, may we seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow. Bless now the work of this council, our city workers, and the citizens of this community. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a special presentation, solid waste presentation of the Herman Drake Award to Tommy Hughes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Sheldon Smith from the city of Greensboro, but more importantly tonight I represent APWA Solid Waste Division as their division president. And what we're here tonight is to recognize one of Hickory's own as our Herman Drake Award winner for this year. I want to tell you a little bit about the Herman Drake Award. It's named after a solid waste employee who had a 40-plus year career in the city of Rocky Mount. So it's a very prestigious award that we give out on a yearly basis. Tommy actually competed with nominees from the city of Charlotte, Cary, Asheville, and Raleigh. But the categories that encompass that award are self-improvement, training, achievements, community service, and character. And when I read his submittal, Tommy is what you would call a true garbage man. I said it was a true garbage man. I can appreciate that, and we brought Brooke in about the same time. Right? But after reading that and reading the others, I thought it was hands down what was submitted by past President Louis Berry and also his public service director. So Tommy, based on your high performance, customer service, and also your professional development, that you are definitely a Hickory go-to guy. Anytime that they need anything, you filled in. I read your profile perfectly. You're what anybody would want as far as solid waste on our level to say, this is what we want. We want people to go out there and get it and service our public. And reading the things that people said, positive things about him, just helping out, not providing service, but just helping out while he's out there on the route. And you can only be proud of someone who's taking that task to heart as far as the ultimate public service. So Tom, I want to present to you the 2012 Herman Drake Award winner. Again, a true garbage man.
Doer, not a talker.
Thank you, sir.
Tommy, is this your family over here?
Yeah, that's my family.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys. Congratulations.
This is his new grandson.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tommy.
Nick, can we give him one extra day off this year?
You bet. And take the family with you.
Yeah. I bet he talks trash at home. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of July 17th, regular meeting?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
Motion's carried. Mr. Seaver made the motion, Ms. Patton seconded, it's unanimous, and all approved. Motion to approve the special meeting of July 17th.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Fox, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It's unanimous. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Fox, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion's carried. Anything to be taken off the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, can you move item K?
Okay. K is coming, moving to K. Anything else?
Move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item K.
Second.
Mr. Lael asked that item K be removed. Mr. Meisner made the motion. Mr. Seaver seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carried. Mr. Berry, item K.
Item K is a contract for City Council's consideration. We've had some conversation about that since the agenda has gone out. The contract would be with a company called Land Design out of Charlotte to work with the Inspiring Spaces Committee to help them create a plan. You all created or appointed that committee at your last City Council meeting, and they actually had their first meeting. They're off and running. In conversation, I think the strategy is to maybe take this contract and break it up into smaller pieces so that we can evaluate at the end of each piece how the work is going, how the progress is being made. And from that concept, I think from a staff standpoint, we would recommend that council table that for tonight. Let us go back and work with Land Design to parse that contract up into smaller pieces so we can evaluate it as the progress is being made, and bring that back to you at your next meeting in terms of kind of a phase one of what would probably be a 3 or 4 phase potential contracting relationship as that work moves forward.
Do we need a motion or just accept?
Well, what you do need to do is you need to then remove from the consent agenda also the budget amendment that went with that, which was number 4. Funds were being taken from your contingency, your annual contingency amount from the general fund to cover that contract. So you would need to not act on that, and then we'll bring back to you at your next meeting the appropriate budget amendment to go with the phase 1 contract.
Is this in any way going to hamper anything in the meantime?
No, I think what we do is continue to move forward with the process. The contract is being covered in the course of about 8 or 9 months, and what we'll do is take the first couple of months of work and put that into a single contract by itself. So that work can go ahead and move forward. We've already scheduled the site visits with the Inspiring Spaces Committee, and that will continue to happen.
I just want to make sure there's no delays because
I don't think so. I think what it will do is actually make good milestones to come back to City Council, report on the progress that's being made, and then get City Council's blessing and authorization to continue with the next phase of the contract as it continues to move forward. So,
This total amount is in line with what other cities have spent.
it is. As a matter of fact, we looked at Statesville just recently finished a very similar plan, although theirs was much smaller in scope. It only looked at about 4 blocks around their downtown, and this plan is going to consider all the major thoroughfares throughout the city and the gateways. And I believe that contract came in at about $175,000 or $180,000, so it's pretty consistent. And their per hour rates are comparable to what everybody else in this industry charges.
And we do have, some previous studies in talking with the consultants that they were, willing to look at. So that in itself is saving us some money because we employ good consultants in previous years. And I think we are kind of noted for our efforts since I've been here in doing some long-range planning. And I would just like to comment, Hank was at the meeting and Rudy was at the meeting, but the sense of excitement in that room from a very diverse group of people about these inspiring spaces was almost contagious. So I'm like, Hank, I don't want to hold this up. But if you are comfortable as a staff looking at it just in increments, then I would go along with that. But I certainly don't want to hold it up, because for our community to make our mark, we're going to have to be willing to look at our city and our entrance ways and some of our public spaces.
Mr. Berry, also at this time, would it be appropriate to name or publicly announce the 2 additional people that were added to the inspired spaces?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Giss. At your last meeting, as you approved that committee, there were 2 members who we had not been able to meet with yet, just because of the timing of everybody's schedules. And we have subsequently been able to meet with them, and they were both at the first meeting. And so Benny Yunt and Frank Grendel also have been asked, and were willing to serve on that committee and are on that committee. So that does round out your committee. Those 2, we just had not met with them at your meeting last month, and so we didn't want to announce it publicly. We have not gotten a go-ahead from them, but they are serving. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs, that's right. So I think the action council needs to take is to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item K that was removed and item 4, M4 of the budget amendment.
I'd move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item K.
Second.
And I think it's that motion to table those until the information you receive from the city.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can simply bring it back at the next meeting.
But continue with the project. Motion by Mr. Lael, second by Mr. Guess. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. We have a report of Mr. Guest's expenses to Raleigh. I know Mr. Guest is new to this board, relatively. Mr. Guest, we'd like to try to keep those expenses under control.
Big difference.
He reported $9.83 to go to Raleigh and back at 8. Okay. What do we have here, Mr. Berry, under new business?
The first item will be to receive a departmental report on a project that the City Council recently authorized for acceptance of grant funds, and I think this is a pretty exciting project from our utility fund. And it looks like Mr. Kevin Greer, Assistant Public Works Director, is going to present that to City Council.
Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to give this departmental report on what we think is an exciting project. The mayor knows how I feel about water and sewer. But this is a long-standing project. This is a project that actually goes back to, and we'll cover it, but 1999. If nothing else, utilities should get the persistence award for continuing to apply for monies. But this was $2.9 million in grant, so it was definitely worth going after. This is the Random Woods, Eastwood, Sherwood Forest project. We rolled 3 subdivisions into one for our application. I apologize, this is hard to see, but the point behind this is right here is Eastwood's subdivision. This is Random Woods, and over here is Sherwood Forest. If it was a better map, and I apologize again, but Sherwood Forest and Random Woods are actually inside the city's ETJ. Eastwoods, the ETJ runs this one block here to the creek and over, so it's just barely outside the ETJ. So I wanted to share with you that those projects are inside our planning jurisdiction, of course, for us to go after, and they're relatively close to existing sewer lines, and of course a lot of them have water lines already in them. We'll take these in order. Random Woods subdivision is just off of Springs Road. There's 48 single family lots that are in that subdivision. All but 2 in there are built on. So it is pretty much a built-out subdivision. There is no existing sewer inside of Random Woods, and you can see the blue lines we have are actually water. So we do have water in this subdivision, but no sewer. In Random Woods itself, since 1999, there's 8 lots in there that have had septic tank repair issues that have had to get repair permits to come in there and do so. Of course, these subdivisions are in the 30 to 40 year range, which, as Mr. Miser can attest, that gets you to the septic tank limit plus a little bit when you go that far. So these are really good projects for us. Eastwoods is the one that's just outside the city's ETJ. It is a 100-lot subdivision, and in there's 88 lots that are built on. So we've got 12 lots in there that actually do not have homes right now. Part of the reason for that is because 2 of those actually are septic tank repair lots. So they've got 2 of those that are eat up just with septic tank repairs that have had repairs put on. We do have the existing Snow Creek outfall that's in the bottom. That line was put in, I'm going to say in the early 90s is when that line was actually installed. Late 80s, early 90s is when this line was installed. So that is an existing sanitary sewer line that we would tap into just to come over. And then Sherwood Forest is a subdivision. It's these 2 streets right here. Actually, there is no water in the 2 streets in particular, and there's 65 lots that are in there. Now, these lots here at the end that are wooded do count in that 65 lot count. Those are actually septic tank repair lots. So it would free up those to be able to be developed on as well. All of these subdivisions, we actually had the county that came to us back in '99, which was the source of the original application. And then we've had homeowners since then asking us, okay, when are we going to have sewer? When can we have sewer? Again, we did originally apply in 1999 for the project, and we reapplied every year for the same monies. Before it was a low unit cost loan, and we told them we didn't want the loan, but if we could get it as a grant, we'd be glad to do the project. And the state finally got to a point that this is a very good project on the state size. It does take up, there's 213 lots total. That of those, there's 176 that actually have septic tanks on them right now. This would take care of those. Again, the subdivisions are in that 30 to 40 year time frame, so it's at or past the horizon for septic tanks. Since 1999, in these 3 subdivisions, there have been 22 total repair permits that have been issued to do repairs or specialty repairs to the systems. One of the recommendations that we as staff would make is, several years back, we actually came up with what's called a future annexation agreement. It's for subdivisions or areas that really aren't attractive to the remainder of the city services, but water and sewer are available to the area, so we can provide that service. We are recommending that we do future annexation agreements with the properties that are out here, meaning before they would be able to be connected to the sewer or apply, they would have to do the future annexation agreement with us out here.
We could annex when we wish. Right?
Yes, sir. At whatever time that the city would then annex, we would be able to go out there and actually capture those properties.
Do we annex? What premium do we charge? Is there a tap fee?
Since we're not annexing, everything's actually outside rates, which means it's double. So where an inside customer pays $985 for a water tap, they pay almost $2,000 for a water tap.
And we get to keep that?
Yes.
I assume these agreements are assignable, or, that property owner.
They run with the property, actually.
Correct.
What is the time frame for having this completed?
We, at the last council meeting, council actually approved the grant offer. All that's been sent back to the state. I'll be coming forward with an engineering contract at the next, not this coming council meeting, but the following council meeting. From that, we've got about 3 or 4 months worth of design time to get everything finalized, wrapped up, get the easement plats done. These are all 3 separate subdivisions, as you can tell, so we'll actually do them as 3 totally separate projects. Eastwoods would be the first one that we would tackle, only because really all we have to do is cross the creek, and then everything's in the subdivision, so everything's in the roads. Random Woods will probably be last, only because there's a little longer outfall that has to be done. But as we were approving subdivisions in the mid-90s, late 90s, we actually had a big portion of that recorded through subdivisions that were reported. So on the plats, we actually reflect some of those easements. Sherwood Forest is all new easements, but the property owners own quite a bit of that property, and they're the ones that are wanting the sewer, of course. So we don't predict easements to be an issue on the project. Of course, you've always got a couple that you really have to work with, but we've got a pretty good track record of that. So,
Just a question: why we? I assume it's just finance the costs. In the '90s, when we did like Havenwood and stuff, did we not require all those? That we had an annexation. I mean, is this going to cause us in the next 20 years to have these spots here and there coming in?
There's the potential of that, and that's why the future annexation agreements we think are a good tool, because basically they say to the property owner, you can have this municipal service, water and sewer in this case, but at whatever point in time it makes sense for the city to annex you, we will annex you, and it's an automatic voluntary annexation. So what happens is, they won't all tap on at once. If they would, then the whole neighborhood would come to the city at one time and it'd be clean and easy. The reality is they'll all tap on as their septic tanks fail, and that could take 5 to 10 years. What we'll do is we get critical mass, and now it makes sense to serve them with fire, with police, with sanitation, and we can annex the entire neighborhood at the time frame that makes sense for the city. And they pay the outside rates that whole time, so they're paying double water and sewer bills. Their tap fees are double, all that, just like because they are out in the county, and then they come into the city when it makes sense for the city to annex them. So that's how that will work out longer term.
Do we go to those property owners that only have sewer with an agreement? I mean, only have water with an agreement?
We did not. We do now. We did not do that historically. But now when they are in proximity to the city, we recognize that we will annex them at some point in time. We do.
And what's the impetus for them to sign?
To get tapped onto the water line.
What if they're already, I mean, a lot of those are already tapped?
Well, for them, it's going to be to get the sewer.
Okay, but what happens if those people, some people are on water now and don't want sewer and therefore do not want annexed in 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, the expectation is, and this was coming from the county to us, is that they're all going to have failing septic tank issues. So every single one of them, some of them do not have places to do repair fields.
Right.
So you got a health crisis in effect. You've got a house that's not going to be inhabitable because they can't flush toilets because they can't have a septic tank. So it's not going to happen all immediately, but the projection is that over the next several years they will all tap on that sewer line and then all sign those annexation agreements and eventually all come into the city.
Will they have to, each one say if they don't do the home, take it out, or do they?
No, they don't actually make them. They just disconnect them and it just stays in the ground.
Is Crestmont inside the city limits?
Yes.
In front of Sherwood Forest? And are they on septic tanks?
Yes. You got what used to be the food line, I think it's Lowe's.
Yeah.
Now is there, that little complex. And then you've got Green Acres Mobile Home Park that has sewer. But the biggest majority of that, the sewer kind of runs up the road past to get to the shopping center and the bank and a couple other things that are there. Thank you.
Next department report, I'll ask Assistant City Manager Mr. Warren Wood to come to the podium. As you all are well aware, there's been a lot of conversation by neighboring municipalities and in the media about the internet gaming. And we wanted to come to City Council and give you an update on where that stands from a legal standpoint, from a law enforcement standpoint, and then also from the actions of our neighboring communities, and then suggest some additional steps that we think the city could take to stay in line with that. So,
Mayor Wright, members of the City Council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. We will go over the background related to internet gaming, look at specifically locally what's been happening as well as statewide. I'm going to start it out by introducing the topic. Brian Fraser's going to come up and talk about how your land development code addresses this issue. And at the end, as Nick said, we'll have a recommendation on what we feel the city, what action we feel the city should take in addition to that to address this issue from a privilege license standpoint. When you hear about internet gaming operations, these words are interchangeable: internet sweepstakes, cyber sweepstakes, video sweepstakes, online gaming, electronic gaming. So those are all, to a large degree, the same thing. This is a definition. This is a long definition, and this is probably the most difficult part, is trying to explain how this works. Chief Adkins and I took a field trip, I guess it was yesterday, to try to get a hands-on, I didn't actually play a game, but a hands-on feel for what for how these work. And the way this works is through these establishments, customers pay a fee for, they pay a fee for web browsing, for internet usage at their location. But they're also given electronic credits to play these sweepstakes games online. And what happens is these businesses will get a subscription to an online gaming company. So these aren't built into the computer. These are actually online games that could be done out of California or Colorado or wherever. And if a person wins a game, they're generally given a cash prize. Now, a lot of people will think that's gambling. The legal wiggle room that these folks were claiming is that they're calling them sweepstakes. And the way a sweepstakes works, if you think of Publishers Clearinghouse, you buy a subscription, that's your entry into the sweepstakes. So with these online games, you buy the internet time and the credits, that's your entry into the game. And I'm not defending that, that's what they're arguing, and I'll talk about a court case that talks about that, so addressing that issue. In addition to that, they also say there's predetermined winners, like with the Publishers Clearinghouse, there's a predetermined number of winners, and they're saying that these online games, those are built the same way. There's a predetermined number of winners.
But they don't publish that.
That's their argument. That's their argument. You're right. And the court case is going to take that up.
And I want to ask, do you have to go to the sweepstakes process, or can this, if it's online, can anybody do that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, you can gamble online, but you don't have that same amount right there.
So we went to one out on Springs Road, walked in, there's probably 4 or 5 people sitting in there, walked back, talked to the manager, asked her to kind of explain how it worked at this particular location. She says the customer will come in, they'll pay $10 for internet time, and then the house, the business will match $5. That gives them 40 minutes of time. Now, some people come in and you can just browse the internet. But most folks come in and play these games. You also get credits with those, and generally your credits will run out before your time runs out, so then you go buy more credits. But in essence, it's about that simple. And the cash that's changing hands is at the counter. No cash changes hands at the machines. And the payout also, if there is a payout, if somebody wins, it pays out at the counter. So it was about that simple.
Well, let's not be naive enough to know that people are paying that to go in on the internet when the Springs Road Library.
Yeah, I'm repeating what I was
there.
Yeah. Okay, so that's hopefully I did an okay job explaining kind of how that works. We are aware of 4 of these in Hickory. There's actually 3 in the northeast and 1 in the southeast off Powell Valley Boulevard. There used to be one on Startown Road, but we believe that one has moved to Longview. So,
There's 2 popped up out that way.
okay. Well, one's on Powell Valley Boulevard. That's a new one. But if folks are aware of other ones, you can let us know. But those are the ones that we are familiar with. And at this point, I'll turn over to Brian, and he's going to address how the Land Development Code regulates these, and I'm going to come back and wrap it up with the recommendations of the court cases.
I've got one question that might be asked by anybody or nobody. I don't know. These bingo parlors that are around, are they the same kind of situation? Although it's probably not online, I don't know if they're doing it.
They're regulated by statute.
Down here.
No, they're regulated by a separate set of statutes. Whole county general statute. They don't come under.
Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Barry, Mr. Crone, good evening. As Mr. Wood indicated, I'll talk about the zoning regulations, and be happy to address any questions that you have after that. As you can see, these are the zoning regulations in our current LDC, our Land Development Code. You can see at the bottom highlighted in yellow, electronic gaming operations. And the electronic gaming operations, we used to treat them as just a permitted by right retail operation. No different, no more, no less than a clothing or shoe store or something, or a bookstore. But back while we were working on formulating Hickory by Choice 2030, as well as the Land Development Code, Council acted in December of 2010 and amended the Land Development Code, where we have specific and special regulations for the electronic gaming operations. Now, instead of being allowed by right, they're only allowed by special use permit in 2 zoning districts, the C2 and the C3 commercial zones. In no other district are they permitted in any way, shape, or form. And just to let you know, to give you some local comparisons, Catawba County does not require any special zoning requirements whatsoever. They're only allowed by right in 1 zoning district, but there's no special use permit, no going before their planning commission.
And staff has found out that in Conover, they also have no special zoning requirements. They're permitted by right in the B4, B2, and M1 zoning districts over in Conover. And in Newton, they also have no special zoning requirements. So Hickory is more stringent. In Newton, they're permitted by right in all commercial districts, and Newton's City Planning Commission is currently considering special zoning requirements like you did about a year and a half ago. Whoops. And we have those specific use standards in Article 6, Section 6.2.8, electronic gaming operations. We basically have three standards or contingencies that if you want to go through the special use permit process, the gaming business must adhere to. One is that there's no more than 20 machines at any one licensed location. Two, as we call it, the 1,000-foot rule, much like an adult type of business is regulated here in the city of Hickory, where the gaming operation that's being applied for cannot be within 1,000 feet of another such business, a residential zoning district, a child care center, any kind of religious institution, any type of school, recreation center, or park. And the third contingency is that the gaming operations may only operate between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. And since you enacted these regulations back in December of 2010, we've only had one application come through the Hickory Regional Planning Commission for a special use permit, and that's the new operation that either is about to open or has just about opened on Catawba Valley Boulevard behind the old Circuit City. Gaming operations would also have to meet the standard special use criteria in the Land Development Code in Article 2, Section 2.4.5, A through G, basically health, safety, and general welfare requirements, which are standard. So there's about 11 different criteria that a gaming business has to address and to meet and to adhere to for them to be approved by the city's planning commission to gain that special use permit. The last slide I wanted to show you was a map. Now this map is basically pretty much the eastern, southeastern section of the city of Hickory, and you can see it's right I-40 interchange 70. Here's the interchange at I-40 70 LR Boulevard, and all the areas that are in yellow, these are the only areas left remaining in the entire city of Hickory that these businesses may be allowed to go in through an application through staff with our recommendation, pro or con, to your Hickory Regional Planning Commission. All the other areas have already been exempted, and a lot of these areas near LR Boulevard, near the 7040 interchange, as well as near the Valley Hills Mall. These are all pretty much high rent districts, if you will, that are quite expensive. And a lot of these gaming operations have gone into the more, we'll say, lower rent district types of areas in the city and not paying as much money as rent on a monthly basis. I'd say, and Dave and Cal could back me up, we probably get at least half a dozen to a dozen, if not more, inquiries a week. We've had a lot of people lately coming from out of state. I've fielded several phone calls from South Carolina folks, and they were looking at putting in 60-odd machines. And when they found out that what our regulations were, they asked me to make phone calls to Newton, Conover, and Catawba County. So again, the vast majority of folks that have come in and asked to be permitted, they never even made it to the Planning Commission. There's only been one that's been approved by the Planning Commission since the new zoning regulations went into effect back in December of 2010. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Fraser, will you use the laser pointer to point to Catawba Boulevard where that one is that was approved?
I think it's my Quiznos.
Right around.
Why is that not highlighted in yellow?
Because anytime a new business is approved in a yellow area, it comes off the yellow area and staff does a new map. Anything within 1,000 feet of that approval gets eliminated.
Well, the yellow's all gone, there's nowhere to go.
That's the only places that they are left to go. We had one business several months ago on Highway 70 Southwest, the old Howard Johnson's. They set up an illegal gaming operation. We've probably shut down at least half a dozen illegal ones. Sometimes we've been notified by the chief's department. Other times we get citizen complaints. Other times we notice in our travels. A lot of times these folks' competitors will call and turn them in. But we gave the gentleman a permit for a business center to cater to his nightly guests, weekly guests, what have you. And we went there and found out it was filled with gaming machines, so we closed them down. And he was thinking of appealing, and he was about 975 feet from a residential zoning district, so he was not allowed to apply. We recently have been starting to find these illegal gaming businesses, basically 1 or 2 machines in various restaurants, bars, and gas stations in the city. And when we find them, we give them a letter, and if they don't comply, they're fined $100 a day for each violation, meaning each machine. So it can be a lot of money real quick. Any other questions for me this evening?
You know, there's nothing wrong with squeezing those districts down, because the whole time I've been on council, it's always bothered me because it seemed like the seedy night spots and the strip centers and the undesirable things always went out West 70. I felt like that was the sort of the dumping ground for what nobody else in Hickory wanted. So, you know, this is probably about the same thing.
Well,
and there's certainly no reason for us to apologize for having a higher standard. And if they don't choose, you know, when you said the high rent, if you talk about a boulevard, that triggers me, because a lot of the undesirable places that went out West 70 and bordered the west end of those residential areas were low rent places,
sure.
And that is very unfair to one whole end of town.
Well, they can't be out there at all.
And it also influences the whole neighborhood.
Sure.
And I think is part of the problems of some of these neighborhoods.
Yeah, they're very limited now because of our land development code, is where they have been able to locate for about the past 18 months. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get to a recommendation. But first, a little bit about what's going on at the state level that might impact all of this. Are they legal? In 2010, the General Assembly actually banned internet gaming cafes. However, in 2012, the North Carolina Court of Appeals overturned that, claiming a violation of the business owner's right to free speech. So that case, as to whether or not they are legal, is currently before the North Carolina Supreme Court, and the league says they expected a ruling on that this fall. So that's...
They're illegal in Virginia, right?
Yes. So all this sweepstakes, using that as an out, that's what's going to be looked at. So there's the one issue that we may not be dealing with this at all. There's another case also that's going after that. It is proven to be deemed to be legal. What is the proper tax or fee that a jurisdiction can levy against these businesses? And both Fayetteville and Lumberton are being sued for having what they call a prohibitive tax, meaning they have set it. The plaintiff says they've set it at a level that basically prohibits those sorts of businesses operating in those jurisdictions. Those are also before the North Carolina Supreme Court. Fayetteville's was $2,000 per establishment and $2,500 per machine. Lumberton was $5,000 per establishment and $2,500 per machine. The North Carolina House had a bill that was floating around that never got voted on. They were proposing $1,500 for local governments to be able to charge $1,500 per establishment and $750 per machine. So that's, you can see the level of difference there. So just a random survey of what some other cities are charging. The range is generally, as far as the per establishment charge, between $2,000 and $2,500, and then the machine could be between $500 and $2,000. You can see, I guess Burlington would be on the high end of all that amongst those three cities. Boone does it a little differently. They've got $2,000 for the first 4 machines, and then after that it's $2,500 per machine. Longview was a $1,000 flat fee. You see Morganton and Wilkesboro. And the 2 locally or more local that have recently, through their privilege license process, began charging a tax or fee. Conover is doing $2,500 per establishment and $1,000 per machine. And then Newton felt the need after Conover did that to do the same thing, $2,500 per establishment and $1,000 per machine. And just to get, for the sake of discussion, Roland, staff would recommend $2,500 per establishment, which is consistent with Newton and Conover, maybe a little bit higher on the per machine cost. We don't want to be more attractive, so $1,500 per machine. So that would be a recommendation from staff to amend the fee schedule to include that for online gaming operations.
It's to be assessed annually.
Yes.
What was Kinston's salary?
I don't.
I think it was $65,000 a machine or something.
That may have been the total revenue that they generated. I don't know that was.
Huh?
I think that's the total revenue from all the machines.
Oh, it is, okay. I know it was a big number.
Yeah, I read that too, and I think it was that was their total revenue.
Interestingly, municipalities have the power to levy this type of fee, and counties do not.
What I would like, I'd like a couple of things. Personally, I'd like to throw out here. One is, if they'll post their, I would say we ought to be $5,000 an establishment, $3,000 a machine. And if they will post the odds of winning, we'll cut it in half and they'll get fees.
Well, after, if online gaming is deemed to be legal, then they take up the next court case, and both Lumberton and Fayetteville's charges are upheld. That might be what we would come back with, because that's the level, that's closer to the level that they are.
And second, until we decide whether they're legal or not, I don't think we ought to put these in our general fund. I mean, what these establishments are trying to get us to tax them. They're begging us to tax them because they want to operate, and they can afford to pay all of this because they're ripping off the users.
Well, as a part of the state bill, they had proposed that the revenues generated go back to law enforcement activities.
I would suggest it not go into the general, not offset, that it be an additional thing. That if we put it into law enforcement activities, that it be set up to police gambling operations and deal with people who have gambling problems.
And just to give you an idea, I had the chief run some statistics, and statistically speaking, we do not have really any more calls at these establishments in terms of criminal activity than we would at just any other sort of retail operation. So we haven't had a lot of problems in that.
In terms of collecting the fee and enforcement of an amended fee schedule, our fiscal year beginning on July 1st, we would notify them that the fee schedule's been adjusted.
Yeah, I contacted.
Credit them and then send them a bill.
And I contacted the league to make sure that were finance. I had finance contact the league to make sure we could do that, and they said that's appropriate. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have to do a little calculation back out what they've already paid compared to what they would be paying. But we can do that.
Since you are a mole, are there any state like health sanitation or sales tax? Are they paying any of that in there? They pay any concessions?
Well, I mean, they pay an existing privilege license that fall under
Retail, merchant retail.
Yeah, general retail that they're already assessed. And so in fact, what you'd be doing is going back and changing that and increasing it significantly. I think it's about $1,000 a year. Is that right? And that general,
it's hundreds of dollars as compared to this would be thousands of dollars right now.
This is deemed legal, and it goes to Lumberton case. What is the time frame of that determination? Is there any way to
Probably in the fall.
Yeah, well, I heard the fall on determining whether or not it's legal. I have not heard a time on the next.
Okay, in the next level. Okay.
Okay, so what is your recommendation?
amend the fee schedule for a $2,500 per establishment fee for online gaming and a $1,500 per machine charge.
And so your suggestion, Moody, and then if they post it, or winners, whatever.
If they post the odds of
cut
winning.
it in half, is it still gonna be his recommendation, or is it gonna be lower?
Well, I was gonna say 5,000 and 3,000. And if they'll post the odds of winning and allow that to be auditable, then we would give them this lower rate. They don't want to do that.
But you know, we've had trouble with people posting, you know that.
And the problem with that too,
Posting. I don't want to be, who's gonna check, who's gonna go after and find out if they posted it? We went through that dilemma with, where was the adult place you went and it wasn't posted? I think we said that.
Please elaborate.
I went to work in the show, Mrs. Fox went there saying.
No, you know, we went through there with nobody under 18. We went through all that, so this is gonna be the same problem.
and in fact, that'll be even harder to enforce. I mean, they can put up whatever kind of odds they wanted to.
How
Just
do
to,
we verify that?
They've got to develop an audit trail that we can follow.
I would,
Well, who's gonna follow it? We're short on staff.
I do like.
Then pay the 5,000 and the 3,000.
I would recommend, at least now, going along in line with what other municipalities have done, so that we're basically fighting together and there's no contention that ours is more unreasonable than anybody else's. And, we've taken early steps in the regulation of these types of suites. You all took a very early step when the issue of whether they were legal or not was up in the air, but it looked like the Court of Appeals may rule in their favor by amending the zoning ordinance to allow them only in special places. And that's a big step, and a lot of people haven't done that. And the next step, in my opinion, would be to go along with this type of fee schedule as the next step, and then wait and kind of see what the court says. I mean, the Supreme Court may say they can be banned. That ruling about whether they can be banned or not will come down fairly quickly. I talked to Ms. Doolin, and the ruling about whether the fee schedule is excessive or okay is still in the courts and probably will not be determined for another year. But the issue about the legality of internet sweepstakes is imminent, I think, this fall, pretty soon.
Make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Second.
I have one question. Say we had an ordinance on limiting the number of machines per establishment for the 20. How many are in the establishments that are here now? 20 each?
I would assume, I do not.
How many did y'all see? There was at least 20.
I'd like the discussion to continue. I thought Mayor Wright made a good point about them being willing to pay the fees, and I don't think necessarily Hickory becoming dependent upon it. But I don't know if you guys read in your league newsletter, the Randy Parton Theater down in Roanoke Rapids. They're actually recruiting this business, and they're going to charge them fees.
That's where they're going to pay.
Right. So I think he made a good recommendation about maybe not putting that in the general fund, so that at some point, down the road, that doesn't. I don't know. Can we do that with our fee schedule? Separate?
Well, what I'd recommend you do, I wouldn't establish a separate fund that is easy to track. We can easily track it, and you'll know exactly how much came in from it. If you want to do something in particular with that money, you can do that. I wouldn't set up a fund that doesn't rise to that level.
I think that's worthwhile.
Would the difference in $500 make us that less attractive, or should that be higher? I guess I'd rather have higher standard. It's 500 enough.
Well, if you consider that with the other special options that we have in other cities don't have, that probably is
I consider what you all are doing is still taking steps to address an issue that you have a concern about. And the first step was revising the zoning ordinance. This is the next step, and I think there'll be several other steps about what to do with the money and following the pending court cases that are before the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. I don't think this is the last time we're going to be looking at these issues.
And or tweaking.
Correct.
Well, I'm torn because I want us to do something to make sure we are not the most attractive path of least resistance.
But I think the part that the whole part that we are very selective in where these are going, I mean, we've been very proactive with that. And I don't know, personally, I feel like we need to go back after those renderings, the court renderings, and revisit this, rather than be noted for somebody that's too high and then they call us in the court like they did the other two. I don't want to make it attractive.
Yeah, and I don't understand the financial model of those places.
There are municipalities in this state. Well, I mean, the financial model is they squeeze the person
Right.
to cover all their costs,
Regardless.
and he's got a little profit.
Right. Well, regardless of whatever
Regardless of
fee,
what we charge, they're going to squeeze them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Hickory's a desirable location for them because of just because we're a hub of activity. And so I do think that there is some merit in this is a tough.
But putting it up to 5,000.
No, I don't think that's.
Would that be strength trade, or I mean, could they argue that too?
I think the path you've taken and the path that you need to take is to continue taking these steps. And I think the staff recommendation is a good one. And you can always revisit it, and you will be revisiting the issue as time goes on.
The motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mrs. Fox. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I vote no. Appointments? First of all, Catawba County appoints Oscar Vasquez to the Hickory Regional Planning Commission. We'll include that. I've nominated Christopher Wilson to Historic Preservation. Anybody else? Folks, we need some help. If y'all have any thoughts on any of these slots that are available, everybody has this list, don't they? We'd be receptive to hearing any recommendations you would have for some of these slots. I make a motion we accept those nominations.
I'll second.
Motion by Wright, second by Lael. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. That motion carries. Any matters not on the agenda? I'd like to mention that with the concurrence of council, I have discussed this with city staff, that we would consider having the town hall meeting to discuss the pros and cons of the ward referendum following our regular meeting of September 4th, the day after Labor Day. That is close to the early voting date, but gives everyone a chance to get it on their schedule and get prepared for it. I'm not asking for a motion, but we will put that on the agenda and ask staff to move toward that date if it's okay.
What was that date again?
It's the 4th of September, the Tuesday after Labor Day.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to mention our hosting the leading municipalities and Institute of Government or School of Government on the 20th at 5:30?
On the 20th at 5:30, the city will be sponsoring and hosting an information meeting, nonpartisan, with Mike Crowell, who's considered to be the expert in North Carolina on council representation. It will be narrated by Ellis Hankins, who's the Executive Director of the North Carolina League of Municipalities, 5:30 at Highland Rec. It'll probably go for an hour and a half. That would be an excellent time for people to come with questions they might have. Just come and listen to an expert who's going to talk about the pros and cons of the various forms of representation. And not a chance, that won't be the time for debate, but it'll be the time to ask questions and get further information.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Berry, would Mr. Kroll be able to address what, in the event the referendum would pass, what the election method would be? For example, if there were 6 people that filed for election to Ward 1, would it be plurality of majority?
He will.
Okay.
I've got a list of things. I've got a conference call actually with 2 of them tomorrow, and a list of things that I already know of, just to say be prepared for, address all these different issues.
You said the date was the 20th,
The 20th, which is a Monday. Monday, right? The 20th.
August.
Highland Park.
Yeah, August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's September.
September's after the election.
Is that the same date as the Highland Recognition, the Highland, neighborhood meeting?
That comes at 7.
Off the record
I
following,
think they would do that following this meeting.
5:30 to 7.
Well, we're not putting a deadline on it. We're not putting an ending time on this. Again, this is the chance for the experts to come and talk to us, unbiased, nonpartisan. I'm hopeful that that groups like the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce will have forums and let people present their reasoning and arguments for one form or another. But we only know what we can do, and I think we have been as responsive as is reasonable for a city to be responsive. With the first meeting we had, then this meeting on the 20th, and the meeting on the 4th. Any other, Friday at 6 o'clock, we will unveil the name of the structure. It's going to be fun. We'll have music. Mandy and Dana are going to dance. Little soft shoe. No, we are going to have a lot of fun, and we will. Does anybody yet know the name? Do y'all know the name? You do know the name?
I think it's in a double sealed envelope in a vault, isn't it?
Hermetically sealed in a mayonnaise. Do you all know now what the name is?
Somebody knows.
Have you ever, Kimberly, have you all tallied the votes?
There is a winner, yes.
I'm just curious to know, because I was going to say, maybe no one still knows who it was.
And farmers market, I believe, tomorrow has
Will be in it. Okay.
I would also like to, and Chuck, you may want to add to this, Hickory is hosting the North Carolina Urban Forestry at the Trade Center, and I believe they're having festivity at the Ivy Arena.
I want to recognize Warren McCallum. If you want to stand up right to Warren. I introduced him a couple of months ago. He's a local Hickory young man who attends Clemson University, and it was a great pleasure to have him as an intern with us this summer. He did a lot of great work for the BBC, and really came in handy. His sign pulling skills we tested as we had some staffing issues in the planning department. Warren actually was out there riding around the city car pulling signs that are illegally placed, and we appreciate him doing that. Really just a fine young man, and we really enjoyed having him with us this summer.
We only have 3 pending lawsuits for unauthorized sign. Thank you, Warren.
But it's good to get a youngster. He was pretty quick.
Yeah, right.
than Russ.
We replaced him with the Clemson Tiger sign.
That's where all those Clemson signs are. Okay. We have some scouts present. I'm going to ask one of the scout leaders to introduce these young men, and I guess they're here to get their citizenship badge.
Yes, sir. I'm the Scoutmaster for Troop 329 out of Bethlehem, Lucian. I've got James Silver, Lindsay Weaver, Cody Hutman, and Joyce Weaver.
Right.
We're doing some intern stuff on some merit badges and just seeing how it works.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Mr. Larry Pope has requested to speak to council to request an ordinance which would deal with the appearance of young people in the city.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, and Attorney Dula. Thank you for an opportunity to speak with you tonight about a concern that I have about the appearance of, I'm not going to necessarily say the young folk of the city, but a lot of folk of the city going from young adults, juveniles, teenagers, to those that might be early 40s. What I am concerned about is the appearance that we all can see on a daily, regular basis of how our young people, as I want to refer to them as, wearing their pants down below their backsides, even though they may have a belt on in the loops of those pants, showing what, in my opinion, I'm calling indecent exposure. Then we have young ladies that are wearing short shorts that show part of their cheek area when they walk down the street or sidewalk. To me, that's indecent exposure. I know that a lot of our parents, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, sisters and brothers that should have control of the appearance of those young folk are not doing their jobs at home, encouraging these young folk on how they should be dressing. We wonder why we have so many young folk that are unable to find jobs. If I was an employer and somebody came to my business dressed the way that a lot of these young folk are, I wouldn't hire them. I wouldn't even think about hiring them. I know that when I was asking citizens on the bus, on the streets, about their opinion on what I'm proposing to you, they said, one person said to me, I was in court last Friday, and a lot of young folk were there, and the judge sent them home and said to them, you don't come in my court dressed the way that you are dressed. Go home, change, come back, and I will hear your case. I am proposing that the city does an ordinance to go on the books that will not only fine these young folk when they are out and about dressed this way, but also a court cost for a violation of a city ordinance.
3 minutes.
I talked with Attorney Dula about this and told her what my ideas were and what I am willing to do at no cost to you is I would like to see a citizens committee formed where when these police officers stop an individual for this appearance, which is improper, take a photograph, take a name, take an address, take a phone number, bring those photographs and hand them over to this committee. Let this committee decide on whether a citation needs to be issued, and so mail it to them. Give them a court date. If they don't appear in court, then the judge can issue a to show cause order and order them into court. And if they don't want to come to court, put them in jail. But we have to, if we're going to promote our city as a place to live, a place for families to come to and retire in, then we need to do something to improve the appearance of the young folk who walk and travel our streets and sidewalks on a daily basis. I would recommend to you that a committee of staff, Attorney Dula, sit down, talk about this, and see what other cities have done, and come back to you and make a recommendation. Thank you. Any questions by anyone? Thank you.
I guess I would ask Mr. Cron and Ms. Dula, research what other cities have done along these lines, and let's have a department report at some point on the subject. I look at it a little different way, but both. I believe you can't hold down a job if you can't hold up your pants. And I agree fully with many of the remarks you made. Anything else before we go to closed session? Everybody make a motion to go to closed session?
Yeah. 3 minutes.
You want to speak?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
First day of kindergarten with my daughter. I'm running late. Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Barry, Mr. Cron. Just two things I wanted to speak on. First was the idea that has been reported, and some people are saying that because a petition has been certified and a special election has been scheduled, that council cannot vote to change the system themselves. State Board of Elections has informed me that is not the case. It may be your preference not to vote, but there's not a statutory prohibition to vote, and that would essentially suspend the need for the special election. I think it's irresponsible to categorize an unwillingness as an inability to vote. Second, I think the language of some people in referencing the pros and cons and the people that support the referendum. I think some people have referenced the statements made by the people that are for the referendum as sinister, and has categorized people that support the referendum as crackpots. I think that's language unbecoming an elected official, and I think as citizens of Hickory, we deserve leaders, elected leaders, who are more willing to participate on the field and not heckle from the sidelines. I'll leave it at that.
You want to state your name and address, please?
State my name.
Name and address, please.
Joe Brandon, 812.
Well, I would like to respond to that. I know I normally don't, but I would like to respond that 2,707 people signed a petition, is what I'm told. I have not counted them. I've not looked at any of the names. They signed a petition asking that the city council authorize a referendum. They didn't sign a petition asking that we vote to change our system of voting. We are complying willingly with that. And that's all I have to say.
Make a motion, we adjourn to closed session.
Motion by Mr. Miser, second by Ms. Patton. All in favor say yes. Aye. All opposed no. It's unanimous.